everyone, and welcome back to the Haunting Chronicles, a channel purely dedicated to diving into the dark side of the world where we cover all things mysterious, criminal, and haunting. I'd just like to add a disclaimer that this channel is recommended for mature age viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Today's case has so many twists and turns. Just when you think it's concluded, the real truth comes to light, and it's something so many didn't expect. So make sure you stay tuned to the very end, because this is one you won't want to miss. In the year 2000, Dave Kroupa was a local mechanic for his small town when he found himself falling in love with one of his co-workers, Amy Flower. The two were head over heels for one another. Amy loving Dave's dorky personality, and Dave loving Amy's soft and caring nature. Before they knew it, they had everything. A beautiful home and two gorgeous kids. However, unfortunately, due to clashing work hours, the two grew apart and eventually separated. Once their separation was finalized, Amy moved back to her hometown of Omaha, Nebraska, and Dave, not wanting to be away from his kids, followed as well. Life seemed simple for Dave and Amy, co-parenting to the best of their ability and giving their kids everything they possibly could. However, in 2012, Dave's life would fall into turmoil. He thought it was time to start dating again. However, he never knew that swiping right would change his life forever. Being a single father in Omaha, Nebraska, Dave thought he would give online dating a try. A way to meet new people. Since the recent breakup, he just wanted something casual, some way to connect with people, but still maintain his independence. Within a few days, Dave connected with Liz Golia. Dave's excitement began to rise as he saw how many similarities the two shared. From both having two kids to riding motorcycles and loving pets. They both agreed to go on a date, and they both had an amazing time. Although Dave made sure to remind Liz that this wasn't anything serious. It was all just casual. Liz agreed. She said she felt the exact same way. A few days later, when Dave was back at work, he had a customer approach him about her car. She absolutely took his breath away. The two were enticed by one another, having great conversation and sharing a few laughs. But by the end of the day, they both went their separate ways. But fate would bring them back together when Dave spotted her account on one of the dating sites. This is when he matched with Cari Faver. Cari, who was 37, was everything Dave could have hoped for. She was funny, smart, beautiful. She was a successful computer programmer. Cari was independent and direct about what she wanted. It was a quality Dave loved about her. Their first few dates were light and easy. Cari wasn't looking for a commitment either. It was like a match made in heaven. After a few dates, Cari went back to Dave's apartment, and within a few minutes, there was a knock at the door. They hadn't even had a chance to settle in. It was a bit unexpected. When Dave entered the door, he saw it was Liz, the woman he had previously dated. Cari and Liz didn't speak, but there was a very awkward undertone to the whole thing. However, afterwards, the pair didn't really give it much thought. 2 weeks later, Cari had spent the night at Dave's apartment. Her work was close by, so it was so convenient for them to spend a lot of time together. The next morning, as Dave left for work, Cari gave him a kiss goodbye and said she had a busy day ahead of her. Later that day, Dave received a text from Cari. Cari was saying she wanted to move in with him. Dave was a bit taken aback. After all, he thought they were just a fling, something casual. It seemed too soon to move in together. When Dave expressed his feelings to Cari, Cari sent a string of nasty messages. This seems so out of character. She was so loving and caring previously. However, Dave just decided he would wait till after work and go and talk to her about it. However, when he got back home, she was gone, and all her belongings that were there were gone too. Dave was really confused, but he just chalked it up to a misunderstanding and decided it was better to just move on with his life. But the messages didn't stop. Over the next few days, Dave received hundreds of text messages. And they weren't just accusatory anymore, they started to become threatening. Cari accused him of ruining her life. Meanwhile, Cari's family was growing increasingly alarmed. Cari had stopped responding to calls and messages, only sending a few out-of-character messages through Facebook. She had even missed her own son's birthday, something so unlike Cari. Cari's mother, Nancy Rainey, immediately filed a missing persons report to police, as she just knew in her gut something wasn't right. However, police weren't that concerned. They pointed out the messages that Cari had sent saying that she wanted to leave her old life behind and start anew. And under the eyes of the law, people are allowed to disappear. After all, she was an adult. Amongst all the chaos, one night, Liz comes back to Dave's apartment. She's so frazzled to tell him that someone keyed her car. She was also being harassed by Cari, receiving dozens of threatening messages from her to stay away from Dave. As months turned into years, the messages did not stop. Dave would receive them daily, if not hourly, receiving sometimes to 30 to 40 messages at a time. They always came from different numbers, but were always written the same way as Cari wrote. The harassment began to become unbearable for Dave, so he went to the police. Cari was even messaging him about the customers he was currently serving at work, or what food he was eating at his favourite diner. Dave was getting so unsettled over the whole thing. And then things really escalate. Police began to investigate where Cari could have been hiding from a distance to see Dave, almost doing like a reverse stakeout, waiting to see if they could spot the apartment or building she would be in. Then the harassment had turned physical. Cari had messaged Dave photos of inside Liz's apartment. She had keyed her car once again and spray painted all over the walls. Liz and her kids were terrified and feared for their safety. Dave felt absolutely awful, but the two did find comfort with one another. The next day, Dave's window was smashed in and someone had been in his apartment. They had written all over the walls and even slashed and stabbed Liz's clothes, as if they were sending a message. Dave's fear really began to increase. Worrying over the safety of Liz, police still couldn't locate Cari. Dave's mental health began to spiral. He was in constant fear of what could happen next. Cari even started messaging him about his kids, where they were, what they were doing. Dave was on the verge of having a mental breakdown. Then Dave received a message. Cari had burnt down Liz's house. Fortunately, Liz and her kids weren't home, but it had killed all of her beloved pets and destroyed everything she owned. Liz was absolutely devastated. She decided to pick up what little she had left and move away, and not tell Dave where she was going for her own safety. Dave was heartbroken, but he understood. After Liz moved away, he felt so isolated and alone. She was the last person that could understand what he was going through. At this point, Dave had had enough. He moved away and changed his phone number, doing everything he possibly could to get away from Cari. Although, in the back of his mind, he still knew Cari was out there. A year had passed, and things were blissfully quiet for Dave. He had not been receiving messages from Cari anymore, and the case had gone cold. Two detectives from the Potawatomi County Sheriff's Office, Officer Jim and Ryan, had asked to take over the case to go over it with fresh eyes. The case had just really piqued interest for them. At the beginning of their investigation, they decided to re-interview Cari's mother, Nancy. Nancy, though, was skeptical and short. After all, the police had done very little to help locate her daughter. Nancy mentioned that Cari wouldn't just up and leave her son. Nancy just wanted to know her daughter was okay, to see her in person or speak to her on the phone, something other than just through Facebook messages. However, in her gut, she felt like Cari wasn't with them anymore. Her mother's intuition was just telling her Cari was gone. Cari was previously diagnosed with bipolar and depression, and she hadn't taken her medication with her when she left. This is a main reason why police thought she was capable of this harassment and stalking. For Dave, now that things had settled, he thought it was time to try online dating again. He found a girl he clicked with and set up a date. However, after waiting for a few hours, Dave had realized that he had been stood up. Even though his date kept messaging him saying that she would be there soon, she just never showed. Until about 2 minutes before he decided to leave, he received a message saying, "This is Cari." Dave's stomach absolutely dropped. He had unintentionally let Cari back into his life. Now, his ex-partner Amy and their kids were Cari's main target. Amy started receiving messages from Cari to stay away from Dave. She would cut her throat. Cari would even message her saying what exactly her and her kids were doing, like playing at the park one day. Cari had really begun to stalk Amy. Dave's father ended up buying Dave a gun, just for peace of mind, to hopefully help him be a bit more at ease. Police began to question, how could Cari have orchestrated this? Not a single sighting of her in 2 years? She hadn't touched her bank account besides a single transaction the day after she went missing. She had even left all her belongings at home. Her mum had said that it looked like she was just going to walk in the door the next day. Nothing was touched. They started looking at Cari's case as a death investigation. They wondered, if Cari wasn't sending the messages, then who was? They started looking at where the messages were coming from, tracking their internet protocol, or more commonly known as IP addresses. However, whoever was sending these messages were using VPNs and proxies to cover their tracks. This helped create multiple IP addresses to cover where the messages were really coming from. Although one address really stood out. It belonged to Todd Butterball. Todd was a man who actually worked in the same sheriff's department that was investigating the case. He also worked in IT. With this new discovery, detectives decided to hide all the evidence, so Todd couldn't gain access to information about the case. When police interviewed Todd, they checked if anyone else had been living with him. Todd stated that he had a girlfriend living with him ever since her house burnt down. That's right, if you hadn't already guessed it, that girlfriend was Liz Goya. That's right, if you hadn't already guessed it, that girlfriend was Liz Goya. This had cracked the case wide open. Liz had been impersonating Cari since the day Cari went missing. Liz was the stalker and the arsonist. Forensic analysis showed that the messages from Cari had actually come from all of Liz's devices. Police began to look back at old case photos, and one really stood out to them. It was a photo of Cari's car, but it was time-stamped Christmas Eve 2012. But the police hadn't actually received Cari's car until the 8th of January. This is when they found Liz's fingerprints in Cari's car. This is when they noticed something chilling. They had put a tracker on Liz's car, and she had been circling Amy's house. Liz was doing this on a daily basis. And at the same time, Dave had noticed his gun was missing. Then, on the 5th of December 2015, police received a frantic call from Liz saying that someone had shot her. Liz had been shot in the leg and the assailant had run off. Amy had been arrested for the shooting of Liz. However, police didn't believe this. They believed Liz had orchestrated this whole thing to blame Amy not only for the stalking and shooting, but for Cari's murder. However, they decided to play along, kinda set a trap for Liz. They hoped that if Liz believed the police were after Amy, she would slip up and give some information that she wouldn't otherwise say. Their main reason for this was trying to get details as to what happened to Cari. So police set their bait. They suggested to Dave to move in with Amy, for him to protect his kids, make them all feel a bit safer. But really, they were trying to push Liz to see what she would do next. And it didn't take long for Liz to send messages to herself posing as Amy, giving horrid and vivid details of what happened to Cari. In the messages was details that Cari had been stabbed in her car, literally wrapped in a tarp, taken to an abandoned parking lot, and set on fire alive. This was absolutely gut-wrenching for police to read. Police once again searched Cari's car, and under the fabric of the passenger seat they found what looked like a blood stain. The DNA tests confirmed that it belonged to Cari. It was official. Liz had not only impersonated Cari, but she had killed her too. Police believed that Liz had murdered Cari after that first interaction. The awkward one when they came to Dave's apartment? They believed it was fueled over obsession and jealousy for Dave. Liz saw Cari as a threat and she had to get rid of her. After killing Cari, Liz went to extraordinary lengths to cover her tracks. From sending thousands of emails, to keying her own car, and even murdering her own pets when she set her house on fire. She had staged everything, manipulated everyone, and created this insane illusion that Cari was alive and stalking her. It was such an elaborate plan, and for years it were. But Liz wasn't done yet. She denied ever being in Cari's car and tried to spin it that she was being framed, that it really was Cari behind all of this. Police then started working endlessly to get as much evidence as they could. They feared, what jury is going to believe that someone not only burnt their house down, keyed their car, killed their pets, but then also shot themselves in the leg? Over what? An obsession? But then police had found their smoking gun. They had asked Dave to double-check his storage unit to see if there was anything else that may have been missed. And thankfully, there was. In Dave's storage unit was a tablet with an SD card. It had originally been erased, but police were able to regain what was on there. On the tablet was thousands of photos, mostly selfies of Liz. So they decided to go back to the time around when Cari went missing. And this is when they saw it. At first, they thought it was a thumbnail of a piece of rosewood or some kind of tree stump. But then they realized it was a photo of a post-mortem foot. On the foot had a tattoo. The police went to Cari's mother to confirm that it was hers. This tattoo was a Chinese symbol for mother. In 2017, Liz was charged with first-degree murder. During her trial, prosecution painted a picture of a woman who was driven by insane jealousy and obsession that drove her to do the unimaginable things that occurred. The jury agreed, and Liz was convicted. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Cari's body was never found, so the family never really received any closure, only enduring the endless pain of loss. Her mother, Nancy, remembers Cari as the vibrant, beautiful woman she was, who was an absolutely amazing mother to her son. And that's a wrap on the Cari Faver case. A haunting reminder of the dangers of unchecked obsession and the devastating consequences of manipulation. And justice, though bittersweet, had ultimately been served. Join us next time as we continue to explore the stories of the dark side of the world. Thank you so much for listening, and if you like this channel, remember to subscribe for more. And remember, stay together, stay safe. Bye for now!